Hello, I'm Born-Hilborn, and this is a full description of the afterlife and what you can expect after you die until your next lifetime. This is a full description based on the Born-Hilborn Interpretation and the applied mathematics. This is the afterlife consciousness beyond the brain and body. This is a history selection interpretation of quantum mechanics and its applied mathematics. This model begins with the premise mind is not confined to neural tissue. In the Born-Hilborn collapse theory, memory and awareness are part of a selected history itself. In other words, consciousness belongs to the unfolding history of the universe, not to any single organ. As one explanation puts it, consciousness is not manufactured by the brain or spinal cord, but by a soul's Markov blanket interface inside a larger history selection process. The brain is a costume, and your real self is the pattern of insideness that persists when the costume is shed. A person is a bubble, an inside, an outside. A body is merely a costume, a personification. We call it a soul. It is the continuing Markov blanket bubble. It carries all of your memories and identity through time. Death is not deletion, death is transition. But your memories and your thoughts don't exist within you. You attune to them. It's a deeper story, but this story is going to continue based on the idea that our consciousness collapses us into a dreamlike state. And our I amness will simply return to a larger field of consciousness. Our soul pattern reemerges into the larger universe of the eternal, ready to converge again into the next phase. In effect, death becomes a waking up process, not annihilation. We're more personified with every lifetime. The moment of transition, what occurs when we die? Imagine lying on your deathbed for a moment. It feels like falling asleep, but something shifts. You enter a vast, timeless awareness. Many traditions call this the clear light or luminous void. In our model, this is the universe's pure informational field. It may appear as a bright white light or as a still darkness, but either way, it's deeply peaceful. You may feel an expansive, loving presence. This is essentially your own higher consciousness, sometimes called your higher self, welcoming you. From here, the details of what you experience depend on your patterns of expectation. If you carry calm gratitude, the scenery feels gentle. If you carry anxiety, troubling visions may arise. For example, some see buildings, landscapes, or whole cityscapes built of thought, like dreamscapes created by collective or personal belief. Others encounter figures, loved ones, guides, even deities or animals. None of these are literal souls judging you. They are projections from your own mind shape, weighted by your hopes and fears. As this interpretation explains, our own future expectations, even of unseen beings, help sculpt past evolution. And this applies here, in this realm right after death. Your fear or loved weight gives form to the afterlife scenery you see in this immediate afterlife. Importantly, there is no eternal hellfire unless you create it. In fact, sin in this mathematics is simply worry or attachment that misweights the history. In practice, this means if you remain clinging to anger or guilt, you automatically loop into situations that teach you compassion. But if you relax and hold a positive, grateful expectation, gratitude is the most obvious act of love, the afterlife feels like a comfortable home. In every case, the process is under your higher pattern's care. One description says your personality bubble continues in a larger context after death. You might say, higher self, thank you, thank you. Higher self, thank you, thank you. Gratitude is the most obvious act of love. To align with that context, it's a way of setting positive expectation at the threshold. You want to collapse your best. So that's why you always should stay in gratitude. You can collapse positive expectations as free will. These initial moments are akin to a dream, and it could go on for a while. You still remain you, but you've lost the haircut. Then you enter a school of growth. Earth is school, afterlife school, always, always, always school. After those initial moments come the afterlife stages. Although I won't name them by old texts, they parallel many reported experiences. For example, rest and review. Soon you find yourself in a peaceful refuge, perhaps a garden, a mountain lodge, or even a familiar home. Here you gently review your life. This is the life ending, not with a judgmental voice, but by feeling your own actions. Some call it life review, but in our terms, your history is already selected, so it's more a clarity of understanding. You see memories as if in a movie, and intuitively comprehend their meaning. Emotions, love, regret, fear wash over you, but they teach you compassion and completion. Healing and learning. If you carry deep pain or imbalance, you may enter environments that offer healing. Think of a hospital for the soul or a school adapted to your needs. Perhaps you instinctively go to a healing hall or commune with another being who radiates unconditional love. In this thought-built realm, the laws of physics are gentler. You heal by intention, a resting place between incarnations with teachers and self-actualization. The Born-Hilborn Interpretation's math model suggests exactly that. These states exist because expectation weight stabilizes them. Guidance and counsel. You do not wander alone. Often a guide or teacher appears. This guide may look human, animal, or abstract, but usually it is a future aspect of your own consciousness, there to assist. You might suddenly find yourself surrounded by friends and family who have passed. They are part of your soul group, helping you understand in Eastern terms. This is like meeting one's own guru or bodhisattva. There has been a different loci of your awareness converging to advise you. Understanding karma. Here, the idea of karma is lived out. You see that every action added weight to possible futures. If you acted hurtfully, you'll spontaneously feel the effect of that hurt, not as punishment by some god, but as natural consequence. For instance, you might be shown gently what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. This is not to torture you, but to calibrate your expectations. The process obeys the same weighting rule as quantum collapse. Negative expectations from harm done pulls towards a harsher next chapter, your next incarnation, your next life could be hell, or if you need to learn empathy or religion, while positive expectations from love done pulls towards ease and joy. Preparation for rebirth. Finally, after healing and learning comes planning the next life, because we're collapsed from the future. You and your soul group, often including future family members or guide, decide what lessons you'll take on when you live again. All your desires and skills are on the table in this mathematics. It's like setting the initial conditions for the next wave function of your life. You don't randomly bounce. You choose the career, family, and challenges that your higher self knows you need. Yes, reincarnation. The universe will then fold that chosen history into the tapestry when the time is right. Throughout all these stages, the Born-Hilborn rule underpins the reality. Every place you see is stabilized by collective and personal expectations. If you spent life daydreaming of peace and love, your afterlife environment will be harmonious. If you lived in fear and anger, the environment might be stormy, but only so you can learn balance. As the theory says, collapse doesn't just flip a coin. It continuously selects one coherent history, using all these emotional weights. This means we create the next scene by our minds, even in death, healing polarity in our blessed existence. This interpretation acknowledges contrast, bad and good, joy and suffering, the two sides of learning. We need bad to have good. We need broccoli to enjoy the ice cream. But my mathematics insists each challenge is temporary. The so-called dark realms of afterlife are not eternal prisons. They are self-generated classes where you train your soul. You will not be trapped. Your Markov blanket bubble has the freedom to pop one form and reform in another. And because you are part of a timeless history, collapse from a far future version of you, even then, you retain full memory of everything you learned. The soul returns to a larger universe of the eternal. Ultimately, death is safe. We are here by the design of our own future selves who guided these events. So live with gratitude and intention. Trust that those you love are learning in parallel. As one practical saying goes, on your way out via death or in meditation, affirm higher self now, thank you, as a sign of faith. This aligns your expectation weight with the loving direction your soul already knows you're headed. Higher self now, thank you. Mathematics. Only by extending the Born rule into history selection, by adding weight of thought from across all of space-time, there are no now moments in physics, does consciousness make sense. What we offer is a science of the afterlife consistent with the Born-Hilborn rule of mathematics, which essentially makes life more of a dreamscape structure. So embrace positivity and gratitude for the beauty of it all. The afterlife, in our view, is rich with meaning, structure, and infinite possibility, a vast continuation of the same adventure you call life. Trust that journey, and you have nothing to fear in death. Follow your bliss. What is the afterlife? You can reason this all out by accepting we choose our history in the quantum mechanics. Faith mechanics call it what it truly is. Now let me stop speaking and just about the mechanics of it and tell you how people live in the afterlife. Do the people have bodies? Do the people have homes? Do they eat? Do they sleep? Do they meet pets? Do they fish? Do they laugh? Do they love? Do they attend parties? Do they study? Do they work? Do they have days? How do people spend their days in the afterlife? I'm about to tell you. The answer in this model is yes, but not in the crude earth-air way. The afterlife is not a blank white hospital corridor. It is not a cloud bank retirement village. It is not eternal choir practice. The afterlife is a thought-responsive world, not imaginary in the weak sense, not fake. It is dreamlike in the strong sense, real to the person inside it, responsive to expectation, shaped by personification, stabilized by shared collapse weight, and structured by this deeper Born-Hilborn interpretation mathematics of selected history. Earth life is also dreamlike. The difference is density. Life is dreamlike because of external memory as CPT ledger symmetry. So I shall call it a dream for references here. Our world is thicker in density. There's a joke there, but I'm not going to make it. Here in Earth air, matter feels heavy because collapse is thick. Bodies, transcripts, records, other people, cultures, habits, history, and mass observation all stabilize the dream. A chair stays a chair because many layers of expectations keep it being a chair. From a tree stump to a wall with a ledge, they count as chairs in the grander scheme. We have agreed on the realities we see through collective collapsing every time we open our eyes. After death, the collapse field becomes more flexible. The soul is no longer locked into the dense earth-air body. The personification of you continues, and you lose a lot of fear because you know you're going to continue after. There is no death. But the body becomes more responsive, more symbolic, more obedient to expectation. You may still have a body because personification naturally produces form. A soul may not wake as an abstract math blur saying, oh yes, I'm pure boundary topology now. It usually wakes up as someone. You have an identity after death that can change. It has a shape because identity has shape. It has hands because it remembers acting. It has face because it remembers being recognized. It has movement because it remembers wanting to go somewhere. But that body is not meat in the classical sense, in the earth-air sense. It is a stable thought body, a personified boundary. It looks and feels like you, often younger, healthier, more expressive, because the afterlife body is built from identity, expectation, memory, coherence, not from damaged tissue, from thought. If a person expects age, they may first appear aged. If they expect illness, they may briefly carry the habit of illness. If they expect freedom, they may become light quickly. The body changes as the soul learns what it no longer needs to drag around. This is why death can be safer than people imagine. We have purposes and reasons for being here, but you do not fall into nothing. You shed density. At first, most people are met gently because a shock is real. The afterlife is not designed to terrify a soul. that just left Earth there. There are rival environments, rest places, gardens, familiar rooms, a home that looks like your grandmother's kitchen, a beach, a cottage, a field, a quiet room with a chair and sunlight, a place that says before any doctor can get involved, you are safe enough to breathe. Relax. The structure is merciful because expectation matters. A frightened soul does not need a lecture. It needs a stable environment that can absorb fear without feeding it. So the first structure you meet after death is a place that will calm you. Usually not a courtroom. It is a recovery field. Get mathematical. Call it a healing hall if that image helps. But do not imagine fluorescent lights and paperwork. Imagine a place where the walls themselves seem to understand you. A room that feels like forgiveness before anyone says the word. A garden where grief can empty itself without becoming permanent. A bed where sleep is not unconscious but repair. A lake whose surface seems to return your own mind in calmer form. These places exist because souls require transition and calm. A soul leaving Earth Air still carries Earth Air habits. It may still think it needs lungs. It may still reach for a body. It may wonder whether it is dead. It may feel guilt, unfinished love, anger, panic, or confusion. The afterlife structures give the soul a gentle bridge between dense history and wider history. This is why many people first experience familiar things. They may eat, but eating is not biological maintenance, it is communion with form. A meal may appear because comfort appears as food. A table may appear because reunion wants somewhere to sit. A cup of tea may appear because the soul expects kindness in that shape. Food there is not slaughter and digestion in the earth-air sense. It is symbolic participation. You taste because taste is a mode of joy. You eat because sharing is a form of recognition. You may have a feast because abundance must be relearned after a lifetime of shortage. Do they eat meat? Some may, at first, if their expectation and culture still requires it. But as the soul becomes more refined, harm becomes less attractive because the afterlife is a school of not harming. The deeper one moves, the less one needs joy to be built on another being's fear. This matters. The afterlife is not puritanical. It is not anti-pleasure, but pleasure becomes cleaner. If a person loves fishing, they may still fish, but the fish may be more like a companion in a symbolic play than a terrified animal with a hook in its mouth. The experience may be the peace of water, the patience of waiting, the remembered joy of morning light, the rhythm of line and current. It may not require killing anything. The soul gets the essence without the harm. That is how many pleasures are purified. The afterlife keeps the joy and removes the cruelty. A hunter may first enter hunting fields because that is the world he understands, but eventually the animal looks back and the hunter realizes the animal is also a personification. Then hunting becomes tracking. Tracking becomes listening. Listening becomes communion. The old pleasure is not erased. It is educated, transformed. That is the pattern. The afterlife does not yank identity away. It refines it. Do people in the afterlife attend parties? Yes. If reunion, celebration, and shared joy belong to their personification, there are gatherings, music, dancing, meals, laughter, the great relief of seeing those you thought were gone. There may be festivals of arrival, reunions with soul groups, celebrations after difficult incarnations, and communal events where entire groups recognize what they learned together. But again, these are not parties of boredom and escape. They are gatherings with meaning. Imagine a party where no one is posturing because everyone knows the emotional truth of everyone else. Imagine laughter without cruelty, music without performance anxiety, food without scarcity, conversation with the little earth-air lies we use to protect our loneliness. That is what joy becomes when worry is reduced. We could have this on earth. Do people have romance in the afterlife? Yes, but it changes. Love continues because love is one of the strongest stabilizers of personification. Attraction can exist. Tenderness can exist. A bedroom love life can exist. But the afterlife gradually separates love from fear, desire from possession, pleasure from hunger, intimacy from insecurity. On earth, desire almost always carries worry. We want love and fear losing love. We want closeness and fear rejection. We want union and fear abandonment. That is the old catch-22 knot. In the afterlife, souls learn how desire feels without panic attached. That is why it is safer there. Pleasure does not vanish, it becomes less desperate. Love does not vanish, it becomes less contractual. Intimacy does not vanish, it becomes more transparent, because one cannot easily hide malice inside affection when thought itself has weight and shape. So yes, there can be romance, but there can be beautiful union. But as souls progress, love widens, the private couple does not disappear, but it becomes part of a larger music. Jealousy thins, possession weakens, affection becomes less about claiming a person and more about recognizing their personification. Do people sleep in the afterlife? They may, especially early, but sleep is different. It is not the body shutting down, it is a shift of attention. A soul may enter rest to digest its own life, to heal, shock, to receive instruction, or to move between environments. Do they have days in the afterlife, calendar days? They can, if days help. At first, yes, many afterlife environments may contain mornings, evenings, seasons, weather, houses, streets, schools, gardens, libraries, water, animals, and sky. These forms help the soul orient itself. A person coming out of earth air does not need abstract infinity dumped on their head like a cosmic bucket. They need continuity and relaxation and non-fear. So the afterlife gives them continuity, afterlife, and non-fear. But time becomes more elastic. A day may pass like a poem. A century may fold into a conversation. A moment of understanding may contain the emotional weight of years. Time no longer behaves like a prison clock. It becomes a learning rhythm. A day there is not the earth rotating. A day is a cycle of attention. You awaken to focus, you explore, you meet, you learn, you rest, you integrate. That cycle can feel like a day because the soul still likes rhythm. Eventually, higher souls do not need days in the same way. They move by states, tasks, affinities, and chosen worlds. But early afterlife has days because kindness has structure. What about homes? Many souls have homes. We've all died many times before. This is a place we've been to time and time again, but we all have different experiences because they're all unique to us. We design our own based on our personifications, which is natural. Not because they need real estate, because identity likes the center. A home is a stabilized self-symbol. It says, here is the shape of my peace. Here is where I gather my memories, my lifetimes. Here is where I invite others. Here is the architecture of my current personification. A person who loved books may have a study. A person who loved gardens may have a garden. A person who loved the sea may live near water. A person who loved building may build. A person who loved cooking may host meals. A person who never had safety may first receive a safe house. These homes are made of thought, but not flimsy thought. They are made of stabilized expectation over thousands of lifetimes. If shared by many, they become more durable. A group can create towns, halls, schools, temples, learning, orchards, harbors, observatories, theaters, and libraries. This is why the afterlife has structure. It has all structure, not because someone built a cosmic bureaucracy, because shared expectation stabilizes environments. The more coherent the shared intention, the stronger the world. A private daydream is light. A shared afterlife environment is heavier because many souls help hold it. A healing hall exists because many beings agree healing happens there. A learning center exists because many beings return to learn. A library exists because many souls expect knowledge to have architecture. This is mathematics. Now let us talk about the libraries. There are memory libraries, but not merely books on shelves. A library there may be a living archive of selected histories. You do not only read about an event, you can enter its meaning. You can feel what another person felt in that event. You can see the hidden motives behind a life. You can understand why a meeting happened, why a loss shaped you, why a fear kept repeating, why a love remained unfinished. These libraries are not for trivia, they are for coherence. A soul reviews history so it can stop misselecting the same suffering. The life review is not punishment, it is education through total empathy. You feel where you gave love, you feel where you withheld it. You feel where fear distorted you. You feel where you helped another soul remember joy. You feel where you harmed and why. You feel what your actions weighted. This is karma in mathematical form. Karma is not a judge with a clipboard. Karma is boundary consequence. It is the tendency of a personification to continue selecting histories that match its own unresolved weights. If you have trained yourself in cruelty, you carry cruelty weight. This will be drawn towards environments and future lives where that weight must be confronted. If you train yourself in generosity, you carry generosity weight. You will be drawn towards worlds where that capacity becomes useful. That is karma. A soul does not get punished by an external tyrant. It gets educated by its own weighting pattern. Hell is a growth op. Bad people do not simply float into luxury because death occurred. That would be silly. A person who spent earth air feeding fear, domination, cruelty, addiction, deceit, or hatred will not immediately enjoy the clearer realms because they will not yet be able to tolerate them. The environment responds to their own interior conditions. If they bring hellish expectation, they may enter hellish instruction, not forever, but until they stop feeding it. This is the school of not harming. A cruel person may enter a world where their own cruelty becomes visible. They may experience the emotional consequences of what they did. They may be surrounded by forms produced by their own fear. They may meet beings who help them, but they must eventually release the patterns. This is not revenge, it is correction, growth up. A soul cannot carry a knife into a nursery and call that enlightenment. It must learn not to harm. And this is why the afterlife is both merciful and exact and mathematical. The eternal torture, no cheap escape. No eternal torture, no cheap escape. If you are loving, you are received by love. If you are confused, you are taught. If you are wounded, you are healed. If you are cruel, you are corrected. If you are selfish, you are shown the inside of others. If you are frightened, you are calmed. If you are obsessed, you are slowly loosened. If you are grateful, you rise quickly. Every soul is met by the world it can understand, then invited upwards. What about pets? I've loved my dogs and my cats. Pets are personifications too, future humans. Non-human personifications, not abstract moral philosophers wearing fur, but living boundaries of love, memory, habit, recognition, and devotion. A beloved dog is not just an animal in this model. It is a soul shape held by its own experience and by the expectation weight of those who loved it. So yes, pets may be met again. A dog may greet you because love stabilized that relationship. A cat may appear because its personification continues in its own way. Animals often transition more smoothly because they do not carry the same abstract guilt machines humans drag around. They are less likely to invent theological panic. They follow love. The pet does not need to understand metaphysics. The pet understands belonging, and belonging has weight. What does a pet do there? It plays, it rests, it accompanies, it may eventually move into other forms, other lessons, other personifications. It may remain available to those it loves because love forms a bridge. It may also join larger animal soul structures, fields of dogness, catness, horseness, birdness, not as erasure, but as group memory. A flock of birds on earth already hints at this. Many individuals, one motion, one mind. In higher fields, personifications can remain distinct while sharing more mind. Humans do this too. Eventually, at higher levels, souls join group learning structures, families, soul groups, teacher circles, creative groups, healing groups. The self remains itself, but becomes less lonely. Thoughts arrive as shared direction, not orders, not coercion. More like the sudden turning of a flock of birds. Go here, rest now, forgive, learn this, return there, help that one. Like a school of fish. Do not choose from fear. That is higher communication. What do people do all day in the afterlife? Based on Born-Hilborn mathematics. They heal, they learn, they create, they visit, they rest, they build, they teach, they review, they prepare, they explore, they love, they play. Some paint landscapes that become walkable. Some compose music that becomes architecture. Some study prior lives. Some work with children arriving from Earth Air. Some comfort the newly dead. Some help animals. Some design future lives. Some join research-like schools where they learn how thought creates form. Some practice forming environments without fear. Some rehearse courage before entering a difficult incarnation. Some simply rest in beauty for what could feel like years. Not laziness, recovery. Earth Air is exhausting. The afterlife contains rest because souls require integration. A person who suffers for decades may need gardens, silence, companionship, animals, music, water, and long seasons of nothing demanded from them. That rest is not waste, it is repair of personification. Others who died suddenly may need orientation. They may not know they have died. They may keep expecting a hospital room, a crash site, a battlefield, a bedroom. Guides approach carefully. Loved ones may appear. Familiar images are used because recognition reduces panic. This is why higher self now, thank you is useful. Higher self now, thankful, thank you. Not as a password, not as a spell sold by a suspicious man with a crystal wand. It is an alignment instruction. It tells the soul, do not cling to the lower panic field. Do not chase the old body. Do not feed fear forms. Turn toward the wider personification that already knows the route. Higher self now means I consent to the larger guidance. Thank you means I add gratitude, love, weight instead of fear weight. That is good. After-death physics in this model. What happens next? What occurs next in afterlife? After rest and healing comes education. The soul begins to understand the mathematics it lived inside. It learns that thoughts were not private vapor. It learns that worry weighted history. It learns that love stabilized history. It learned that resentment bound it to certain loops. It learned that imagination was a training field. It learns that Earth Air was not a random punishment, but assignment. This can be humbling, especially to atheists. A person may see that the life they curse was chosen by a future self for development, not because suffering is good, but because certain capacities require resistance. A soul cannot learn courage in a world where nothing threatens. It cannot learn forgiveness where no one wounds. It cannot learn patience in a world without delay. It cannot learn generosity where nothing can be withheld. This is the polarity principle. We need bad to have good, but in moderation. Contrast teaches, excess crushes. The higher afterlife schools are partly about learning contrast without cruelty, how to create worlds where souls can grow without drowning, how to use resistance without sadism, how to offer challenge without despair, how to make worlds where bad exists just enough for good to become real, but so much that souls forget the point. Earth Air is one school, not the only school, not the best school, not the worst, a dense school. Some souls come here because density teaches quickly. Here consequences are slower but heavier. You cannot instantly reshape the room with thought, so you learn discipline. You cannot instantly read every mind, so you learn trust in speech. You cannot instantly escape pain, so you learn courage. You cannot instantly remember before life, so you learn faith. That is Earth Air's purpose. The afterlife is less dense, but not purposeless. It is where one studies what Earth Air meant. It's a wrap-up. Then comes the planning, the next step. Souls do not reincarnate randomly like billiard balls in a laundry machine. They are drawn by expectation, karma, affinity, unfinished learning, and future need. This should all be instinctive to you. A future self may require patience, so it chooses a life that teaches delay. A future self may require compassion, so it chooses contact with suffering. A future self may require strength, so it chooses opposition. A future self may require tenderness, so it chooses love and loss. A future self may require creativity, so it chooses limitation. This is not always pleasant, but it is not meaningless. Lives have meaning. The soul may choose with guides, group members, future loci of comparison, and the broader higher self. Some choices are made with full clarity. Some are made under the pressure of unresolved desires. Some are drawn by habits not yet corrected. That is why bad people may reincarnate into difficult circumstances. Not because the universe hates them, because their unresolved weights pull them towards the classroom that can expose and correct those weights. It's a growth up. A soul that abused power may need powerlessness. A soul that ignored hunger may need dependence. A soul that enjoyed cruelty may need vulnerability. A soul that lived only for self may need a life where others cannot be ignored. Again, this is not revenge. This is mathematics. Expectation seeks coherence. A distorted personification must meet histories that reveal the distortion. Eventually it learns. Some souls delay returning. Some prefer afterlife learning. Some become helpers. Some remain in constructed worlds that resemble improved Earth air, homes, cities, gardens, university, observatories, social halls, rivers, forests, artistic communication. There are nicer alternatives to Earth air. There are higher lokas. These may be worlds with bodies but no disease, worlds with food but no slaughter, worlds with music you can see, worlds with houses that grow from memory, worlds where books answer questions by opening into lived scenes, worlds where you can sit with someone you harmed and finally understand without defensiveness. Worlds where animals speak in feeling, not sentences. Worlds where children who died young grow in safety. Worlds where artists build landscapes as easily as painters mix color. Some souls live in such realms for long periods, though long is the wrong word. Duration there is measured by completion, not clocks. How long does this afterlife last? As long as it is useful. A rest environment lasts until rest is complete. A healing hall lasts until the wound no longer organizes identity. A school lasts until the lesson becomes capacity. A home lasts until the soul no longer needs that particular home shape. A reunion lasts until love is integrated rather than clung to. A beautiful realm lasts until beauty becomes portable. Nothing is forced to last forever, because forever stasis would become another prison. But nothing good is lost. When a soul leaves a realm, it does not lose the realm's meaning. It carries the learning capacity, just as the crab does not remain a crab forever, but carries the thumb forward. The soul does not remain in one afterlife cottage forever, but carries peace forward. We build add-ons. That is one of the most important points. The afterlife is not the end of growth. It is where growth becomes visible. Earth air teaches through density. Afterlife teaches through clarity. Before life planning teaches through purpose. Reincarnation teaches through renewed embodiment. Higher loci teach through shared mind. Future self teaches through pull. Future pull. God love personification teaches through coherent love across histories. All of this is one system. Now we must ask, do souls eventually stop incarnating? Some may stop earth air incarnations, but they do not stop becoming. They move into teacher roles, world building roles, group soul roles, animal guidance roles, artistic construction roles, healing roles, or higher forms of participation we would barely understand. No final couch, no eternal retirement, no bored angels checking the time. Existence continues because expectation continues, and there's always a future in our perception of linear time. A final destination would mean no further possible coherence, no further beauty, no further learning, no further love. That is not completion. That is the dead end. In this model, eternity is not endless waiting. Eternity is endless deepening, personification. What do higher beings do? Higher beings help stabilize better histories. They guide souls without violating free will. They design learning environments. They reduce fear at transition. They participate in group thought. They help future forms select paths. They may oversee animal progressions, human incarnations, artistic worlds, healing spaces, entire civilizations of thought. They are not worship-addicted monarchs. They are advanced loci of comparison. They can hold more contrast without panic. That is one definition of spiritual maturity. A lower soul sees bad and collapses into fear. A higher soul sees bad, understands its function, limits its excess, and holds the good branch steady. That is why the afterlife trains non-harm. Power without non-harm becomes nightmare. If thought creates form more quickly there, then ethics becomes immediate. A cruel imagination can generate ugly surroundings. A lovely imagination can generate beauty. Souls must learn discipline before greater creative power is granted. This is why some beings remain in lower realms, not as punishment, but because they cannot yet create safely. If you hand a fearful mind immediate reality-shaping power, it builds fear. So the system educates. Gradually, souls learn that worry is not wisdom, desire is not command, love is not possession, and imagination is not a toy. They learn that every thought has weight. They learn that reality is cooperation. They learn the highest joy comes from creating worlds where other beings can flourish. That is the afterlife maturity, helping the all. What about people who love simple things? You can keep them. A woman who loved baking may bake. A man who loved woodworking may build. A child may play. A gardener may garden. A fisherman may sit by luminous waters. A musician may hear orchestras impossible on earth air. A scientist may explore laws of thought matter. A mathematician may finally see that equations were shadows of living architecture. A comedian may discover laughter is still holy. Possibly more so because fewer people are pretending to be offended for sport. The afterlife does not despise ordinary joy. It clarifies it. The purpose is not to strip the soul down to sterile purity. The purpose is to refine joy until it no longer requires ignorance. So yes, there are puppies. There should be puppies. A cosmos without puppies would have failed its own peer review. But these animals are not props. They are fellow personifications. A dog in the afterlife is not a plush toy with nostalgia software. It is a loving boundary, a Markov blanket, a soul pattern of loyalty and play. The relationship continues because love is a real bridge. What about television in the afterlife? Early on, yes, something like television can exist if needed, but it will not remain what it was. The screen may become a memory window. A film may become an inhabitable story. Entertainment becomes participatory imagination instead of passively watching fiction. You may enter symbolic worlds to learn, heal, create, or play. The afterlife does not abolish art, it completes art. Every artwork was already a little afterlife world trying to be born. What about work in the afterlife? Work continues, but without meaningless drudgery. Work becomes chosen service, creation, study, guidance, and repair. If you loved helping, you help. If you love building, you build. If you love teaching, you teach. If you love solving, you solve. If you love beauty, you make beauty. If you love nothing but domination, you first learn why domination is boring, ugly, and lonely. What about family? Family continues but expands. You meet loved ones, but you also learn that many lives have many beloveds. The possessive family structure loosens into soul groups. No love is erased, but love grows beyond mine. Jealousy. This can be shocking, but also freeing. You may discover people you hated were old companions in difficult roles. You may discover someone who hurt you was also a soul trapped in fear. This does not excuse harm. It contextualizes it. Forgiveness becomes easier when memory becomes wider, when we understand death holds no harm. What does a newly dead person need to know? First, do not panic. Panic shapes scenery. Second, ask for the higher self. Higher self now, thank you, thank you. Not as a superstition, but as orientation. I'm telling you how to die. Higher self now, thank you, thank you. Say inwardly, higher self now, thank you, thank you. Look for love. Love is a navigational signal. Do not chase the old body. The body was a costume. Thank it, release it, let it go. Do not cling to guilt. Guilt can teach, but clinging to guilt becomes self-repair, self-punishment. Learn to repair, self-repair. Learn to rise. Do not believe every form that appears. The afterlife thought is thought responsive. Fear can wear costumes. Worry can make ugly masks. If something terrifies you there, respond with gratitude, clarity, and refuse to feed it. Thank it and move on. Choose beauty when confused. Beauty is often a higher order coherent signal. Now, why is death safe? Because the personification is not produced by the earth-air body. The body is a dense interface. The soul is the continuity of the I am Markov blanket boundary moving through selected history. Death changes the interface. It does not erase the boundary condition. Memory belongs to selected history. Thought belongs to selected history. Personhood is a structured pattern within a collapsed field. Therefore, death is a transition of scale. The wave does not die when one splash ends. It rejoins the sea, then rises again where the wind and moon and coast call it. That is safer than annihilation. It does not mean no confusion. It does not mean no correction. It does not mean everyone instantly becomes wise. People carry themselves. A bitter person may awake bitter. A loving person may awake loving. A frightening person might wake frightened. But the system itself is corrective and intelligent, and it has structure. No one is abandoned. Even the stubborn are taught. Even the cruel are eventually softened. Even the grieving are met. Even pets are carried. Even a toaster in your wider model has its little thread of personified duty. Factory, shelf, kitchen, heat, service, because memory and consciousness are not brain exclusive. A toaster does not contemplate eternally like a philosopher with crumbs in his beard, but it has a boundary role continuity with participation in the dreamscape. Its awareness is rudimentary but not zero. It fulfills its pattern. A toaster void of brain is aware memory equals conscious, that is simultaneous at the factory being made. A rock bonds, a toaster toasts, a tree breathes, a fish moves, a crab grasps, a human reflects, a higher soul creates, a God-level mind stabilizes love across histories. Same principle, different scale. That is the ladder of personification. The afterlife is where the ladder becomes visible. You have been there before, not necessarily as a tourist with a brochure, but as a soul between classrooms. You know more than you think. That is why certain landscapes feel familiar. That is why some dreams feel more real than waking. That is why death stories often contain homecoming. That is why love sometimes seems older than one lifetime. The afterlife is not an alien country. It is the larger home from which earth air is entered and to which this earth air returns. But earth air matters. Do not use the afterlife to despise this life. That is another mistake. This life is dense because density teaches. The body is precious because limitation teaches. Pain is not good, but contrast can educate. Bad exists so good can become known, but bad must remain in moderation. Too little contrast and nothing grows. Too much contrast and souls are crushed. The mature universe learns balance. The middle way, Wu Wei, is not dull compromise. It is the mathematics of sustainable growth. Enough challenge to deepen courage. Enough beauty to prevent despair. Enough loss to teach value. Enough reunion to prove nothing loved is wasted. Enough desire to move forward. Enough discipline to keep desire from becoming worry. Enough individuality to make love meaningful. Enough unity to keep individuality from becoming loneliness. That is the afterlife's beauty. It is not merely a reward, it is continuation. It is school, home, hospital, theater, garden, library, workshop, family, reunion, and launch station for future histories. It is the place where souls recover from density, understanding their patterns, meet their wider selves, and learn how to select better worlds for themselves. And yes, it is enjoyable, deeply. Not because it is shallow, not because it is shallow pleasure forever, because joy is what consciousness feels when it is aligned with the histories it came to build. Joy is the default beneath fear. Death removes much of the fear. So the afterlife can feel like relief, recognition, music, sunlight, learning, reunion, and laughter you did not know you were missing. The dead are not gone into blackness. They are in the broader part of the same dream. They may be resting, they may be learning, they may be visiting, they may be helping, they may be preparing, they may be building a world with oak desks, rivers, pets, gardens, classroom friends, and skies whose color responds to gratitude. They are not lost. They are more awake than we are in some respects. We are the ones still inside the dense classroom, staring at the desk, insisting the school building is the whole cosmos. So grieve, but do not despair. They're gone, but they're not gone. Love still reaches, expectation still has weight, gratitude still aligns. The dead are not erased. They are continuing in a wider field of selected history, and one day when earth air loosens its grip, we will remember how familiar that larger field has always been. Be blessed. Blessed be. The end.